Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Welcome. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A huge surprise on Parliament Hill as Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announces her resignation. We have reaction. The Canada Industrial Relations Board has ordered Canada Post workers back to work as of Tuesday. And a shooting at a Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin leaves at least 3 people dead and many more injured.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. A political bombshell was dropped on Ottawa on Monday morning. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is leaving cabinet. She made the surprise declaration ahead of a scheduled cabinet meeting. It comes as she was set to deliver the fall economic statement. The reports that the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wanted Freeland to leave finance and accept a different portfolio, which she declined. Canada's Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc was sworn in earlier on Monday as Canada's new finance minister. Federal Cabinet Ministers Anita Anand and Patty Hajdu, along with Ontario Premier Doug Ford, reacted to the surprise resignation of Chrystia Freeland as our country's finance minister.
Chrystia Freeland is a good friend, someone I work with very, very closely as President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport. This news has hit me really hard, and I'll reserve further comment until I have time to process it.
Conscious, I wish her all the best. Look, these are difficult and deeply personal decisions, and obviously she's made that decision, and I respect her for it.
Premier, you must be concerned about the resignation of Chrystia Freeland today.
Well, I think we all are, but again, this is a time for the premiers to step up, which we're going to, and project unity across the country. And again, we have great premiers, all different locations from coast to coast to coast. And I'm blessed to be chair and have a great team right there with us.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre also chimed in on the Freeland resignation, saying the current federal government is simply spiraling out of control.
Today, mere hours before Trudeau's finance minister was to deliver a fall economic update that was expected to smash through her already massive deficit targets, she announced she no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister. Canadians were already anxious about the reckless $40 billion deficit the government had announced last spring, but today, in mere hours, they were expected to learn that it was much higher than that, threatening our social programs and our fiscal stability right in the middle of a potential trade war. The Prime Minister, with the help and instigation of carbon tax Carney, pushed Ms. Freeland to bring on massive, unsustainable, irresponsible spending increases that blew through her self-imposed guardrail.
Now, the fall economic statement revealed that Canada's deficit ballooned from $40 billion to almost $62 billion. That includes $1.3 billion over the next 6 years to beef up Canada's border security. Sun political columnist Brian Lilley says not only did Chrystia Freeland resign as finance minister, but also wrote a scathing letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Obviously, after months, it's not just weeks, it's been months of the Prime Minister and his office undermining Freeland, leaking to the Globe and Mail and others about how they weren't happy with her work, about how they were bringing in Mark Carney. She obviously had enough. And like someone who has been bullied over and over again, she finally snapped. And so what does her letter say on the way out the door? Well, we needed to have a better fiscal policy in terms of keeping our fiscal powder dry to be able to deal with the Trump tariff threats that are coming in, and not deal with, what did she call them? Cheap electoral gimmicks that we can ill afford. She was scathing in her letter to the Prime Minister. So this wasn't just a I'm leaving. This is an I'm leaving, you stink, here's why. And by the way, I'm coming for you, because this was the launch of her leadership bid. Chrystia Freeland has been one of the most loyal soldiers to Justin Trudeau, and he has not given her the respect that sort of loyalty should entail, should deserve, and instead has treated her quite badly. And she has made it clear that she is now gunning for him going into the future.
Chrystia Freeland is not the only one out the door. Canada's Housing Minister, Sean Fraser, announced today that he will not be seeking re-election. Fraser says that he's resigning from cabinet to spend more time with his family.
The past 5 years has had me reflect on what I hope the next 5 years to look like. And I can tell you, more than anything else, I want to spend more time with my kids, and I hope my kids are going to want to spend more time with me. I want meals with Dad to be part of the family's routine as the rule, not just the exception when he's home from Ottawa. I want to be able to make my wife coffee in the morning before she wakes up, and if we get the kids to bed at a reasonable hour, maybe even enjoy a glass of wine over a conversation in the evening. Through the most difficult and joyful personal experiences imaginable, I have become acutely aware of the finite nature of the time that we have with the people that we love. You blink and you miss it. So I'm going to spend a little more time with the people that I care about most.
Canada's premiers are meeting in Toronto right now to discuss cross-border trade on the heels of a 25% tariff threat from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who's hosting the First Minister's meeting, says it's time to push back on Trump. Sun political columnist Brian Lilly says many premiers are in agreement with Ford.
I think that the premiers are stepping up because the prime minister is not. I mean, you look across the country, you've got Francois Legault in Quebec saying he's sending their provincial police force down to the border. You've got Wab Kinew, the new Democrat premier in Manitoba, saying he's sending conservation officers down. Danielle Smith has one of the most detailed plans on dealing with the border with 51 sheriffs and a 2-kilometer no-go zone. And then Doug Ford, he obviously has a different take than Smith. Smith says she doesn't want to bring in anything that would stop oil and gas flowing south. But Ford says he will stop electricity. There's obviously very different considerations when it comes to the economy. But these premiers are stepping up where Trudeau is absent. And they're saying, all right, we'll work with you on the border, Mr. Trump. But in the case of Doug Ford, he's saying, we'll work with you on the border, but if you hit us, I'll hit you back hard.
Saskatchewan's premier says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau needs to publicly denounce the idea of levying export tariffs. Scott Moe's comments come after reports in Ottawa is going to see considerable levying on export tax on potash and uranium in response to Donald Trump's tariff threat when he takes over the White House next month. Moe says he's reached out to the federal government about the issue and added that the country should not be taxing what it is producing. Trump has threatened 25% tariffs against Canada and Mexico if the two countries do not beef up their borders to his satisfaction. The Canada Industrial Relations Board has ordered Canada Post workers back to work on Tuesday. The 55,000 picketing employees will head back to work under their existing contract, which has been extended until May the 15th. Labour Minister Steve McKinnon also said he would appoint an industrial inquiry commission to look into the bargaining issues and come up with recommendations on how a potential new agreement can be reached. A memorial service attended by around 3,000 people was held over the weekend for former BC Premier John Horgan. The dignitaries included Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, along with NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, BC Premier David Eby, and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe.
It's going to be a huge turnout. I think it really reflects. I mean, John was the MC at my wedding. We were close friends for 37 years, and so obviously it's a big moment for me and for my wife Renee and everyone else. Our lives were intertwined, and we love the guy.
John was one of a kind. He was a remarkable man. He was a mentor and a coach to so many of us here. And the province, the legacy that he leaves behind will be felt for many, many generations to come.
When I was born, your first baby, you were afraid a father to be. Mother Serene said to you, take my hand, make it through.
Horgan died last month following his third bout with cancer. At least 3 people were killed and around 7 others were injured following a shooting at a Christian school in Madison, Wisconsin. According to Madison police, around 11 a.m. local time, officers were called to the Abundant Life Christian School where they found multiple victims with gunshot wounds. The suspect juvenile shooter was also reportedly among the dead.
We're still going through, collecting evidence, collecting information, making sure that our community is safe from what is a sad day for our community and for our country. And we have to do a little bit better. I don't have all the answers that you want right now, but I will tell you this, we have some of the best officers in the entire country. Our detectives are amazing. We're going to go and work hard and go through this scene so that we can piece together what exactly happened.
Well, it appears as though Hamas is at a breaking point. According to our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, the terrorist group is suffering through a genuine leadership crisis, which could potentially spell the end of the Iran-funded entity.
No, it should be. It should be the end of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and of course, leading up to the fall eventually of the Islamic Republic in Iran, because that is where this is all rooted. The support of terrorism. There will be more proxies in the future because they just keep supporting them and feeding them and giving them the supplies to do that. They're the #1 world sponsor of terror, and that hasn't changed for 45 years. And of course, we're hearing this from a Hamas official who says October 7th ruined us. And of course, Bashar al-Assad leaving Syria was the final nail in the coffin.
Lisa Daftari will also have details of how the head of Citizenship and Immigration Services in the United States was blasted for allegedly allowing illegal border crossers to sponsor more illegal border crossers. She'll have details coming up in the second half of our program. Well, we experienced a mainly cloudy day today in Lethbridge and fairly cool as well. Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, cooler temperatures and maybe some light snow, maybe just around the corner?
Yes, starting this evening, we could see some light snow that should last all through the night and go right until noon hour on a Tuesday. And then after that, we might actually even see a little bit of sunshine peeking out from behind the clouds. Also, much colder temperature on Tuesday. So look at this. Tomorrow's daytime high exceeding the overnight low this evening. So it's going to be very, very chilly on a Tuesday. But a sneak peek as we get into Wednesday, we're going to do an about face of the temperature. In fact, Wednesday's temperature is going to be 21 degrees warmer than it is on Tuesday. So what's that all about? I will be back later in the show to tell you more about it. Hal?
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. December 18th is the day Lethbridge West chooses its new MLA. With only 2 days remaining, the candidates are walking the neighborhoods, trying to knock on as many doors as they can. BCN's Naveen Day has that story.
It's not just sleigh bells that are ringing, it's also doorbells, especially in Lethbridge West, as the candidates squeeze in some last-minute door knocking during their final days of campaigning ahead of this week's by-election. And we had a chance to catch up with the candidates of the two front-running parties. United Conservative candidate John Middleton Hope says constituents in his riding are voicing to him the same concerns that are being voiced to his NDP opponent, Rob Miyashiro.
Public safety, healthcare, education, infrastructure, affordability, same things. Yeah, he's hearing the same things that I am. The difference is we have solutions and they don't.
And Rob Miyashiro is also spending his last 2 days on the campaign trail by knocking on doors. But he's taking a different approach by following up with residents who have already expressed interest in voting for him.
The way that works is that we've had people that have said that they're going to support our campaign and vote for me. And if we haven't made another contact or heard from them, then we literally go to their house. We have these cool things. So it reminds them when to vote. It also has where they vote. And then we just hang this on their door.
On Monday morning, Elections Alberta released its numbers for advanced voter turnout. The data shows that close to 18% of advance votes have been cast of the 37,000 eligible electors. Middleton Hope says he has heard that strong turnout could indicate an upcoming party change for Lethbridge West, but continued to emphasize the importance of getting out to vote.
So if you're talking about a change in parties, we've heard that from a lot of folks. And I think that's important. But at the end of the day, it is important that voters get out and vote for us. If they want change, then they need to get out and vote for us.
A third candidate vying for the Lethbridge West seat is Alberta Party's Leighton Ververka. BCN reached out to him for an interview, but he was unavailable due to work commitments. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
The Alberta government is investing $2.7 million in technologies it says will help our oil and gas companies reduce water, while at the same time helping to create new jobs. Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz says that will include 2 new water filtration technologies and a new chemical developed that will allow heavy oil and bitumen to flow faster.
This includes funding for 2 new water filtration technologies that will help the energy sector reduce freshwater usage and recycle more water than ever before. Visionaries like the team at AquaPure Technologies, who are harnessing the power of self-cleaning technology to help find efficiencies and make every drop count, and Eximus Environmental Solutions, who are creating a new filtration system that will mean less freshwater is needed than before. Canadian Natural Resources will also test a new chemical that could make heavy oil and bitumen flow faster and more easily toward the production well, letting them recover more oil using less steam.
According to a Kenworth truck sales bulletin, Ottawa wants to significantly decrease the sales of all heavy-duty trucks with manual transmissions to help reach their climate goals. The bulletin issued in late November says that sales of trucks with manual trannies greater than 33,000 pounds throughout the whole trucking industry should be capped at around 10%. The new measures are to comply with Environment and Climate Change Canada to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases. Now, Bridge City News reached out to Great West Kenilworth here in Lethbridge, and an official said that 65% of buyers purchased trucks with a manual transmission. They say when the bulletin broke 3 weeks ago, it brought shock to the company. Lethbridge Police have released their year-end targeted enforcement strategy. They claim significant results in enforcing crime disruption and downtown disorder. The strategy was a collaboration of multiple LPS units and teams beginning in March and lasting through December 11th. During that time, 442 warrants were executed, 304 people were arrested for open public drug use, and 202 criminal code charges were laid. Over 2,000 doses of methamphetamine and fentanyl were removed from our city streets, and 6 stolen vehicles were recovered. LPS also say numerous weapons were seized during that period of time. Now, on another note, Lethbridge police are also investigating a reported threat at Lethbridge Collegiate Institute. We'll have more on that story as it develops. A large portion of South Lethbridge was without power earlier this afternoon. City officials on a map showed how many homes and businesses were affected. The blackout included north of Crow's Nest Trail to the southern outskirts of the city. City officials say the power was fully restored as of 2:05 this afternoon. The City of Lethbridge announced openings for applicants for 2 kinds of one-time grants. The city's issuing calls for proposals under their Reaching Home program to support projects to combat homelessness. The city is also redistributing unused grants to give local nonprofits which participate in diversity, equity, and inclusion training, known as Make Your Mark grant, a chance to bid on it. Members of the city's Community Social Development explain.
Many organizations like ourselves advocated to the federal government for increased funding. Through those efforts, in the federal budget this year, they announced some increases. We've just now received that increase and City Council has accepted it. What that means for the City of Lethbridge is that we have more dollars to flow into the community for the prevention and the reduction of homelessness, which is desperately needed. And so this announcement today is around our first effort to try to get those funds out into the community.
Last week, City Council approved the Make Your Mark one-time grant opportunity funding framework, which it will provide up to $600,000 of previously underutilized grant funding for this one-time call for projects. And organizations that are applying would be able to apply for capital projects that they'd be able to receive up to 100% of their project cost to a maximum municipal contribution of $50,000.
Officials say applicants for the Reaching Home grant can submit applications by January the 10th, while applicants for the Make Your Mark grant can submit theirs by March 31st of next year. Well, we experienced lots of cloud cover across much of southwestern Alberta today and slightly cooler, and it appears as though some light flurries may be on the way as well. A full look at the weather pictures on deck. We've not had a lot of snow over the past couple of weeks, but that may change fairly soon. Jeanette Rocher is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we could see more of the white stuff as early as Tuesday.
Yeah, well, even this evening, we could see a 10% chance of precipitation from 5 o'clock on. And then as we get into that 11 o'clock hour, that's when things are going to change to an 80% chance That's when we're going to see some light snow happening overnight. That snow is going to last right through a Tuesday at noon hour. And then after that, we could see the clouds part a little bit and might even see a little bit of sunshine on Tuesday afternoon. But here's the thing, it is about to get very chilly. So a daytime high on Tuesday, -14, compared to the overnight low tonight of -13. So we're talking colder weather tomorrow than we're seeing tonight. And then here's something strange. We're going to climb all the way up to 7 degrees on Wednesday. So that's a 21-degree difference between Tuesday to Wednesday. And then we're going to have another little drop there, -5 on Thursday, and then up to -3 Friday. And then we're going to be back in the pluses there for the weekend. High of 9 degrees on Saturday and 8 on Sunday. So we're kind of in the midst of this little roller coaster of temperature. 0 is the average high for this time of year, -12 the average low. 18 was our record high happening back in 1980, and in 1924 Lethbridge saw the record cold on this day, which was -34. Burr, yes. Okay, 8:23, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sun set this afternoon at 4:32. We're seeing 8 hours and 9 minutes of daylight today. Okay, some heavy rains experiencing is what the West Coast is going to experience tomorrow. Victoria, high of 8 degrees, could see 70 winds along the water there. Vancouver, also heavy rains tomorrow, 7 for the high. Edmonton, -19 the high, and chance of flurries. 60% chance of flurries actually in Calgary, -16 the high there. As we look to the prairies here, a mix of sun and cloud in Saskatoon. Also frostbite could occur in minutes, as wind chill is going to be close to -30 tomorrow. 17 for the daytime high though, -50 in Regina, a mix of sun and cloud. And following blowing snow and snow tonight in Winnipeg, tomorrow looking like a mix of sun and cloud and high of -11. We're going to see more precipitation in the central part of the country. Toronto looking at a 30% chance of showers tomorrow, high of 3 degrees. Ottawa and Montreal both seeing rainfall clearing up in the afternoon, but then 30% chance of showers later on in the day for both of those cities. 3 in Ottawa and high of 7 in Montreal. Fredericton, 5 to 10 millimeters of rain expected tomorrow there, and 60 winds. 9 degrees for a daytime high. 10 for the high in Halifax, also 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, up to 70 winds. Rain expected tomorrow in Charlottetown as well, as 70 winds and 8 degrees for the high. 4 for the high in St. John's. What a beautiful sunny skies there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Analysts say Canada Post's nearly month-long strike may have finally driven some customers away for good, leaving the Crown Corporation in even worse shape than before. Workers are set to return to their jobs on Tuesday following the postal and the parcel stoppage that forced thousands of businesses and individuals to use private carriers to deliver their packages. While some business owners and organizations might come back to the Postal Service, others say they have yet to make the switch to digital messaging and will now opt for online-only invoicing and communication, removing even more revenue from Canada Post. Federal Labour Minister Steve McKinnon directed Canada's Labour Board to order employees back to work if a deal wasn't reachable before the year's end. The Canada Real Estate Association says the number of homes sold in November rose 26% compared with last year. That marks a second straight month of large gains year over year. The seasonally adjusted month-over-month rate saw national home sales rise 2.8% from October, something the association says was driven by gains in the Greater Vancouver area, Calgary, Greater Toronto and Montreal areas. Senior economist Sean Cathcart says the Bank of Canada's latest interest rate cut and a loosening of mortgage rules could push for a more active winter market than normal. Now, here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was down 127 points to 25,147. The Dow was also down 110 points to 43,717. The S&P 500 was up 22 points to 6,074, and the Nasdaq was up 247 points to 20,173. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 71 cents to $70.58 US per barrel. Natural gas was down a nickel to $3.22 US. Gold was up $4.21 to $26.5250 US an ounce, and silver was down a nickel to $30.51 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.33 per bushel. Barley is at $6.62, canola is at $13.67, and corn is at $7.90 per bushel. Live cattle were down $1.13 to $187.35. Feeder cattle January contract was down $2.10 to $255.55, and lean hogs were up 50 cents to $78.25. And the Canadian dollar was slightly down over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 70.20 US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland is leaving cabinet. She made the surprise declaration ahead of a scheduled cabinet meeting. It comes as she was set to deliver the fall economic statement. The reports that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wanted Freeland to leave finance and accept a different portfolio, which she declined. Canada's Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc was sworn in as Canada's new finance minister later in the afternoon. As for the fall economic statement, Canada's deficit grew from $40 billion to almost $62 billion. Well, it appears as though the terrorist group Hamas is collapsing before our very own eyes in Gaza. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will have details for us momentarily. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. A senior Hamas official in Turkey says the terrorist organization is nearing a breaking point because of Israel's military operations in Gaza, along with the loss of cooperation from Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship in Damascus. Now, that's according to a report from Israel Hayom. Now, to discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, who joins us once again from the foreign desk in Los Angeles. Lisa, it appears as though Hamas is suffering from a genuine leadership crisis. Could this be the end of the terrorist group known as Hamas?
No, it should be. It should be the end of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and of course, leading up to the fall eventually of the Islamic Republic in Iran, because that is where this is all rooted. The support of terrorism. There will be more proxies in the future because they just keep supporting them and feeding them and giving them the supplies to do that. They're the #1 world sponsor of terror, and that hasn't changed for 45 years. And of course, we're hearing this from a Hamas official who says October 7th ruined us. And of course, Bashar al-Assad leaving Syria was the final nail in the coffin, because that's, now it's become almost impossible for them to have regional support right close to Israel to get their weapons sent through Syria to Israel, et cetera, et cetera. So we hope, listen, this is if this is in fact true, you messed around, you found out, Israel obviously retaliated in a way that was going to be exponential to what they had planned. So give it up, right? Give back the hostages. Let's get this thing ended and sorted through. But of course, terrorists will be terrorists, and they will continue to fight and continue to, it's so senseless, as we all know. So yes, I think this is actually the sentiment that we are hearing from the leadership in Hamas, from Hezbollah, because the higher ups have been killed. Many are fearful for their lives. Many have been outed, regardless of whether they were posing as journalists, as UNRWA workers. They've been exposed. So the jig is up. Give it up. Give the hostages back, and let's just put this whole thing to an end.
A think tank in the United Kingdom says the Palestinian death toll for the Gaza war appears to include thousands who died from natural causes in an effort to maybe inflate the toll of women and children. Now, the Henry Jackson Society says the mainstream media were a little too quick to accept the figures from the terrorist group Hamas, like you and I have chatted about before, that are being manipulated for propaganda needs here.
Right. So, I mean, when you see this report and it kind of broke over the weekend, it's almost like, duh, we all know. And the report basically outlines how the numbers were inflated. There were not as many children and women and innocent civilians killed as we were hearing from the mainstream media that was quoting the Gaza ministry, which is Hamas. There's so many different angles to this. Obviously, a lot of those who were killed were actual terrorist operatives. So that's another thing that's on the table. And of course, the Gaza Health Ministry, again, Hamas, was feeding these fake numbers to the mainstream media. The mainstream media was eating it up and spewing it out. And that is where the world got these numbers to quote. And the bottom line, Hal, is when I saw this report, I thought to myself, those who read this and new are saying, okay, duh, there's no surprise here. And those who don't want to believe it will just ignore it. So what is the percentage of people reading this report and actually being informed and changing their opinions of what happened and understanding that this is in fact a terror organization and we should not be taking any numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry? Now, the Biden administration did fight back, and I remember watching John Kirby and others at their press briefings with, the White House reporters who just kept pushing back on these numbers. And what about these numbers? And what about these numbers? And they would remind them, these are coming from the Gaza Health Ministry. We really don't want to take these numbers. So, obviously it's not going to happen in the Trump administration. They know better. And maybe a report like this is quite timely to remind people of the propaganda efforts, not just by Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, but of course, the Islamic Republic, the regime in Iran as well.
Lisa, the head of Hezbollah says they've lost their supply route through Syria following the toppling of President Assad and following that sweeping rebel offensive. Now, under Assad, Iran-backed Hezbollah used Syria to bring in weapons and other military equipment from Iran through Iraq and Syria and into Lebanon to fight Israel.
Right. So again, here's another, kind of like an admission, right? So yes, we've been weakened. Not only have our top leaders been killed and our top commanders been eliminated, but we can't even get the weapons to us the way that we were getting in the past. Well, not only that, but now you have January 20th, you have President Trump coming into office. He, of course, will put the sanctions back on Iran's regime, not to be able to sell oil and to sell weapons and to collect money through central banks, the way that the Biden administration was very kind to them, allowed them to, get money for hostages, get money from selling oil, to sell weapons to Russia, for example. So all of these will be scaled back. They're not going to have the same kind of deep pockets that they have had for the last 4 years to fund things like October 7th and fund things like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, while they put their own people under the guillotine and no one says anything. All these human rights advocates and women's rights advocates and children's rights advocates are all silent when they watch this whole thing unfold in the last 4 years. So hopefully we'll see a lot of this come to surface.
The head of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran confirmed that the regime in Tehran will no longer impose sanctions on the auditing of its nuclear facilities, Lisa. How concerned should we be about this here in the West?
I won't believe anything that Iran's regime says regarding surveillance. I mean, look, on the one hand, we've seen both, right? We've seen them play this little dance about we're going to comply and then saying, you know what, we're not going to comply. We're going to stand up to the Trump administration and we're going to continue on with our weapons program, hoping that at least the European nations and the UN kind of is fearful enough of them moving forward with their weapons program and then to try to cut them a deal. It's not going to happen. No one believes them anymore. I think the Europeans were hoping that the Biden administration would strike a deal, but the optics were just so bad they couldn't do it. And thankfully so, that they weren't able to strike another meaningless deal like we had under President Obama. So moving forward, we know that the surveillance cameras have been shut off. We know that the Islamic Republic has not been compliant with the IAEA inspectors that have gone in. We know that they have marched forward with their weapons program. So the question then becomes, which has been asked of President Trump in the last few days, what options are still on the table when it comes to Iran's regime? Because deterrence might not be enough. So would we do preemptive strikes on their nuclear facilities in conjunction with Israel? Perhaps. Would we put sanctions back on? Absolutely. I think President Trump and his team will leave every option on the table, which is the right move, not to announce anything, leave every option on the table, to use at least the posture of deterrence, which has not been used in the last 4 years under the Biden administration, to move forward and to see what can get done diplomatically, and then leave the rest up to the Islamic Republic.
3 influential GOP senators, Lisa, who are about to play key roles in the next Congress, are quite concerned that Homeland Security and the FBI are not doing enough to protect U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and his advisors from assassination threats posed by Iran.
Right. So if the assassination attempts thus far on his life are any indication, there is a will, and we hope that there is not a way. They got too close, right? As we all watched President Trump out in Pennsylvania, the way that, everyone talks about the angle and it was just, some people call it an act of God because it was just so incredibly close. So why did they get that close? How did they get that close? And what is the Secret Service going to do here on forward to protect his life? Obviously, when he is in the president of, the office of president, we think that it will be a different game in terms of security and in terms of protection, but I think he'll need that kind of protection between now and January 20th as well. Obviously, there are many people out to get him, including Iran's regime that has doubled down on that threat, and they have threatened him for years. And that's not just because of the killing or assassination of Qasem Soleimani, but because they know that the next 4 years are going to be very different from the last 4. So, we as Americans have to make sure that he is protected.
Andy Biggs, who represents Arizona's 5th Congressional District, blasted the head of Citizenship and Immigration Services for her agency allegedly approving illegal border crossers as sponsors for even more illegal border crossers, Lisa.
The blind leading the blind, right? So it's like, people who come in illegally can then petition for other people to come in as well. There will be an absolute overhaul of our immigration process. We are a nation of immigrants, and we always say this, Hal, you and I, because I think Canada has a very similar issue, and we have an issue with our northern border as well. We all want to be safe, and we all want to let legal immigrants into our countries, and we want them to settle in and have a better life. But the way that things are right now, nobody is safe. The migrants are not safe. The coyotes are taking advantage of them. Women are getting raped. People are getting sick. People are drowning. It's not a proper process for anybody. So obviously this whole system has to be overhauled, and there have to be laws, and people have to come in the legal way, and and then we can absorb them as a nation as well. They can have the proper resources. They won't have to live out on the streets and get involved in drugs and prostitution and all the other things that we're seeing right now with migrants coming into the country. So to give them a fair chance, to give our own countries a fair chance to absorb them properly, there will be a reform of the system.
Now, Lisa, we have some breaking news here as well on the desk of Bridge City News. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a confidence vote, and it appears as though the Germans are going back to the polls in February.
That's right. February 23rd, there will be snap elections. Olaf lost the confidence vote here. Social Democrats, this might be part of the referendum that we're seeing across Europe, across the world, frankly, of the pendulum swinging from the left at least to the center, if not to the right. We're seeing this in many different places. Now Germany can join the list as well. We'll see what will happen in February. I don't want to speak too soon, but this was a pull from Olaf Scholz and the Social Democrats, who were not able to bring the confidence vote. So we shall see what will happen. But again, I do see a larger trend in this happening across the world, and in particular in Europe.
South Korea's parliament has voted to impeach President Yoon over his martial law order. Now, Lisa, it's a move that ended days of political paralysis, but set up an intense debate over Yoon's fate. The National Assembly passed the motion to impeach 204 to 85. So apparently Yoon's presidential powers and duties have been suspended now, and Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, the country's number 2 official, took over presidential powers over the weekend.
Yeah, so this political chaos is nothing new to South Korea, unfortunately, but 6 hours of martial law was not something that the country had any appetite for. In his defense, Yoon says these were all North Korean supporters. We had to put a stop to it, but it's a no. So whether or not they were going to be able to remove him or have him resign, they wanted him out. He has no political future in South Korea, and that is what we're watching unfold.
Let's talk about what's unfolding, of course, in Ukraine. Any off-ramp yet? Are Putin and Zelensky potentially getting together? Has Trump reached out to both, say, let's bring an end to this war once and for all?
Well, they have both wanted to sit down with Trump. Trump obviously giving messages to both sides about having some sort of off-ramp. This has to end, right? So, Hal, we do know that there is a desire on both sides to at least bring this to some sort of conclusion, and obviously from the Trump administration as well, to put an end to this in a way that is quick and kind of stops the senseless deaths. We know that there's so many different angles to this. It has escalated in the last few weeks in certain ways, by the way, and we're watching as that nuclear option is still on the table for Russia. Obviously, we don't know what this madman will do, but I do believe that both Putin and Zelensky do have more confidence in this coming to an end because Trump is coming into office January 20th, and of course, we'll see. Hopefully, they can come up with a creative way that both sides will come to the table and end this war as soon as possible.
Do you think we'll see certain areas of Ukraine being annexed, going back to Russia, maybe certain Russian villages that Putin really had his eyes on? What are your sources telling you right now?
Yeah, that is actually what looks like will happen. I can't see it any other. I can't see it going back to what it was 3 years ago in terms of Ukraine being Ukraine because Russia has advanced too far. And look, Hal, we talked about this. We thought this was going to be a war of weeks, not years, in terms of Russia's ability to annex completely all of Ukraine and not just parts of it. So at the very least, I do think that is what will happen. I also know that there are mixed views as to what should happen and what will happen and what many on the ground want to happen. There are many Ukrainians that want to be annexed to Russia. They speak the language. They feel that they connect with Russia. And there are those who are Ukraine all the way and have so much patriotism and nationalism for the Ukrainian flag and just Ukraine being its own independent entity. So, there will have to be a compromise, but I do think, to your point, that there will be parts that will be annexed.
Lisa, what about Russian President Vladimir Putin beefing up his military with more North Korean troops? What are you hearing?
Yeah, Zelensky actually pointed this out and saying that we're seeing many more North Koreans. We're actually seeing many more North Korean casualties as well. This is a deal that he cut with North Korea, being able to bring in more military might. As you know, there's an issue with the number of Russian casualties, being able to draft Russian men of a certain age. They try to, pull all kinds of things by lowering the age, getting them from elsewhere, letting people out of prison, just to get, more people in uniform out to fight. So this kind of solved their problem. They got North Koreans there. They cut a deal with North Korea. But again, I do hope that we do see an end to this senseless war, regardless of casualties on both sides, and now North Korean casualties, that there should be no more senseless deaths in this war.
Amen to that. She's our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Thanks again for joining us today from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
With cold, snowy weather hitting us in southern Alberta, along with the financial pressures of our current economy, there are individuals and families who are in need. The Salvation Army has been helping out for over 100 years now. And joining me now is Lieutenant Zachary Marshall with the Lethbridge Salvation Army. Lieutenant Zachary, welcome to Bridge City News. Great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. Okay, so can you first of all tell us a bit about the different kinds of help that you offer locally to our community in Lethbridge and Fort Macleod?
Absolutely. So the Salvation Army is actually the largest non-governmental provider of social services in Canada. So we take that legacy very seriously, and we have a variety of things that we offer our community. So here in Lethbridge, we're kind of ramping up to our busy season with our Toys for Tots campaign. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that we do in terms of our ministry to the community at Christmas time. But as well, we have a variety of different things. We have a thrift store for people who are wanting to shop affordably. We have food assistance for people who kind of just need that stopgap help. We have a Pathway of Hope program, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. And yeah, so we're just kind of all over the place, just trying to meet needs as they come to us.
And it's your busiest time of year, as I'm sure it's the busiest time of year for almost everybody, but especially, charities for sure. So now, how has inflation and the shortage of affordable housing impacted our community? Are you seeing more people in need of help these days?
Absolutely. The demand for our services, especially at Christmas time, is on the rise. And I think that's true of all of the helping agencies in Lethbridge. It is an unfortunate side effect of the inflation and how things are going. And we're really just seeing families who are struggling. We're seeing families who have never had to reach out for help before. Reach out for help this Christmas time. And, people are faced with the impossible choice. Do I pay for rent or do I pay for Christmas? And we're really kind of seeing all sides of it. And it's heartbreaking, it's devastating. We're happy to help, but it is unfortunate that there is such a demand for our help.
Yeah, no kidding. And are you noticing any increase in people needing help to overcome addictions, or is it about the same as last year?
It's about the same. I mean, as you know, the opioid crisis is ongoing, and here in Lethbridge, we see it every day. Um, and I would say that our demand for that is pretty similar to what we've seen in the past number of years.
Yeah, and you offer those services too, right? The counseling and
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier our
yeah,
Pathway of Hope program, and that's kind of an end-to-end framework of how we can come alongside families and individuals and help. So when someone comes to us and we take them on as a Pathway of Hope client, we're able to connect them with housing supports, with addictions counseling if that's something they need, with budget classes, whatever they might need to kind of help them step out of the cycle of poverty and into kind of some more stability. Pathway of Hope offers it. So we're really happy to do that for our community, and we've seen some success in that.
that's wonderful. I can't believe all that you guys do. It's incredible. And if somebody does need help, perhaps some counseling or some help with food or clothing, how do they go about getting that?
So they could visit our website, lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca, and we have all of our resources available there. Or they could either call our office, 403-328-8611, and one of our team members will be very happy to field some calls.
Wonderful. And of course, we were talking about how this is a crazy time of year. So every year, the Salvation Army does the annual Toys for Tots outreach at Christmas time. So tell us what that's all about and how we can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. We are big believers in the magic of Christmas. And I personally hold true to the fact that I think every child deserves to open a gift on Christmas morning. And that's kind of where our Toys for Tots campaign comes in. We're one of a few agencies in Lethbridge that provide toy assistance. And our Toys for Tots campaign this year, we will see 500 children and parents come through the doors to shop for their kids, and hopefully we can provide some toys. So we do have some drop-off locations throughout Lethbridge at locations like Toys R Us, Center Village Mall, and the Toy Mountain Drive that they're doing there, and other places in Lethbridge. So we're really ramping up because the time is coming near in the next couple of weeks where we're going to be busy being elves in Santa's workshop is how we kind of refer to it. And it just is really special for us to be a part of that.
Right. And this is where parents can go and actually shop for their kids. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do people apply for that?
Yeah, so we have an online application on our website. So lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca/register. That's the link to our application, and we still do have room. So now's the time to apply if you're thinking about it.
And then, of course, speaking of this time of year, I believe that your annual Kettle Campaign fundraiser is underway now. So what's the fundraising goal and where do the funds get distributed?
Yeah, so this year we have a big goal of $220,000, and that money goes directly to support the work that we do in our community at Christmas time with our Toys for Tots campaign and our food assistance, but really throughout the year with some of the programs that we're able to offer. So the need is increasing, and we're really banking on the generosity of the people of Lethbridge to help us meet that $220,000 goal.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we have a huge postal strike going on right now. So Zachary, has the postal strike affected donations, and what are options for people who usually mail in their donations?
Absolutely. The postal strike could not come at a worse time for the Salvation Army and other charities. And actually, compared to this time last year, our donations are actually down 50%. So we're really feeling the pinch, and we're really kind of starting to worry a little bit about what that looks like for our outreach programs throughout the year. But because of that, we've had to get a little bit innovative with how we accept donations, and we can accept donations in just about any way that people want to donate. So they could give online. Again, the link is on our website. They could give over the phone. We can take card, our Visa or MasterCard over the phone. They could give at any one of our 7 Kettle locations. We accept cash and check and tap at every location. Or they can drop off their donation at any of our locations. So 1302 4th Avenue South or 1811 2nd Avenue South.
Yeah. Has the TAP payment really helped increase donations for the Kettle campaign?
It certainly has. I mean, nobody, or not a whole lot of people carry cash anymore. I can't say nobody, but the TAP donations account for about 15% of all of the donations come in. So that, so it is a help, absolutely. It just gives one other option for people who are passing by our kettle to stop and make a donation.
Yeah, and you were saying donations are down 50%. That's shocking to me. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's the economy, or is it the postal strike, like we were saying?
I think it's a variety of reasons. I don't think the postal strike has necessarily helped the case, but when we're thinking of inflation, the demand for our services are certainly on the rise. But the flip side of that is things are so much more expensive for everybody. I think we're all feeling a pinch this year. And so not everyone is able to help in the ways that they have before. So it is kind of really 2 sides of the same coin. So we're really kind of just banking on the generosity of people to shine through and to help their neighbors out.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, roughly how many families are in need of receiving food hampers this year? Is that number increasing or is it decreasing?
So we're estimating in Lethbridge that between all of our helping agencies, 3,500 adults will be assisting for food and other Christmas activities, and 6,500 children. So we're looking at 10,000 individuals in Lethbridge. And speaking from the Fort Macleod side, we do have a food bank in Fort Macleod, and we're anticipating helping 65 families out there, which is much more than we have seen in years past. So we're definitely anticipating a large year for demand of services across all helping agencies, and it's not a good thing. We're in an industry where we wish we could work ourselves out of a job, but that is certainly not the case this year.
Yeah. So when it comes to the food hampers, how are people donating that food? Is it a partnership with the food bank?
Yeah, so here in Lethbridge, the 2 food banks, so Lethbridge Food Bank and Interfaith Food Bank, are taking care of all food hampers. And we, of course, partner with them as much as we can. And in Fort Macleod, we actually have the only food bank in Fort Macleod. So we take care of the families in Fort Macleod. So if you're in Lethbridge and you're wanting to donate, the 2 food banks are certainly the best option. Even if you wanted to donate to us, we'll make sure that it gets to the food bank. And certainly if you're in Fort Macleod, we're happy to kind of take your donations.
Yeah, and I believe you're part of the Angel Tree campaign this year as well, right?
Yeah, so we're part of the Christmas Hope Partnership. So Christmas Hope is what we do every year with the helping agencies in Lethbridge. So it comprises Lethbridge Food Bank, Interfaith Food Bank on the food side of things. And then for the toy agencies, it's our Toys for Tots campaign, it's the Angel Tree campaign, and it's My City Care Shop of Wonders. So we really work together as much as we can, just to kind of maximize our efforts and to make sure that everybody who needs help is being helped. So it's a beautiful partnership. It works really well, and we're grateful for it.
Yeah, exactly. And people can drop off toys as well, like unwrapped.
That's right, unwrapped new toys at any location that accepting it, and one of our toy partners will benefit from that.
Yeah. We were speaking about donations and, of course, the TAP, all your digital, that helps. Do you find that the majority of your donors are still donating the old-fashioned way with cash? What are you finding? Or has that number increased with the digital days?
Absolutely. Especially at our kettles, the predominant way to donate is cash. We're seeing about 85% of our donations come through cash. And I think it's just, we're so used to using cash, even if we don't carry it regularly, people will say, well, I know that I'm going to donate to the Salvation Army's kettle, so I have to go and get some cash to do so. So, it's a beautiful way to donate. And I think having the tap is, one more way for people to donate, but we're just happy that we're getting some donations in, absolutely, whatever method it is.
Yeah. And is the Salvation Army in need of volunteers right now, or more volunteers?
Absolutely. We're always looking for some people to help us at Christmas time. So, especially with our kettle campaign. So, at every location that our kettle is out, we're hoping to have volunteers on for 2-hour shifts to help greet the public, thank people for their donation. But it's also a safety thing, with that volume of cash. So, we are looking for volunteers, and to volunteer, people can visit our website or look at our social media, the Salvation Army in Lethbridge, to learn more information.
Yeah, so you get to stand there and ring the bell, right?
That's it.
And just
Yeah,
be
it's a very special time.
be merry. And a lot of people might not be aware that Salvation Army is actually also a church, and you have regular Sunday morning services. So maybe tell us about other activities that viewers should know about.
Yeah, that's right. So, in addition to what we do on the social services side, I am also a pastor with my wife, and we pastor at the Salvation Army Church in Lethbridge. So, Christmas time has a little bit more of a special meaning for us as we're looking at what we can provide, because we're also holding true to the hope of the gospel, right? And holding true to the belief in Jesus Christ and his coming into the world. So it's very special for us to have these outreach activities at Christmas time. And certainly through our church, we have a small army of faithful volunteers that help us to achieve our goals and our outreach purposes in Lethbridge. But the one thing I would highlight is that we do have Sunday morning services at 10:30 at our location at 1302 4th Avenue South. And we are having a candlelight service on December 22nd at 6:30. So it's always such a special time, kind of when the Christmas season is winding down as we approach Christmas Day. It's a special time to carve out a little bit of time just to consider the true meaning of the season.
Oh, so lovely. Again, what is your website for people who want to donate their time or their money?
Yeah, so our website is lethbridgesalvationarmy.ca. All of the information that you might need if you want to donate.
Drop off
or
points for
volunteer.
toys and food and whatnot.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all right there.
Okay, perfect. Well, everybody get your donations in of food, toys, cash. It's certainly people definitely need it this time of year. Zachary, thanks so much for being with us today. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
You as well. Merry Christmas. Lieutenant Zachary Marshall is the pastor at the Lethbridge Salvation Army. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.